I'm not sure what you gave me, but I immediately feel better. And
Hemp is so wonderful for anxiety.
and it was one of those things that it clicked. Cannabis is medicine. It's not like I didn't know it. That was the first time I could really help someone with it. That was really like, oh wow,
Felt like it was a tool in your toolkit, didn't it?
yes.
And you were the fixer. Yeah, I know. I get that feeling. I get it. It's amazing when somebody you can share this information with really finds relief like that. She did.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Cannabis Truth Podcast, where we speak the language of cannabis freely and uncensored while educating our audience on safe use of this live plant therapy. You should know what's in your cannabis, what's good and what's not, because cannabis does not come with an FDA stamp of approval, yet. The information you will find here comes straight from scientists and clinicians, doing the work and reporting their findings in reputable outlets. Hopefully, we can inspire you to research the facts as we know them today. Cannabis is an amazing alternative in health remedies, with the potential to alleviate typical disease problems and troubling side effects, even those caused by synthetic prescriptions. Here now is the host of the Cannabis Truth Podcast. She is a 21st century cannabis shaman, not a doctor, not a scientist. Raised by nuns and wolves in the verdant cattle pastures of the Oklahoma oil fields, here to amplify the truth of this great big story of cannabis in historical, political, scientific, and spiritual terms, so you can make educated decisions about the medicine you choose to ingest. Please welcome Honey Smith Walls.
There we are. Hiya, Scott Steiner. How you doing? And thanks for coming back to the Cannabis Truth Podcast. We're delighted to have you here today.
Of course, it's good to be back, honey. I'm sorry our first recording didn't manage to stick the landing, but round 2, and I'm ready for it.
You know, me too, because that's what podcasters do. My audience, Scott is a podcaster as well. And we're just going to be talking about some shop today, about cannabis and what's happening in the industry. And Scott, talk to us about where you are and what cannabis is like in your neck of the woods, won't you? And introduce yourself to the audience again.
Absolutely. Hello, audience. My name is Scott Steiner. I have been in the cannabis industry, God, it must be about 6 years now. I started day one as a budtender at a pretty large dispensary here in San Francisco.
Sorry, I whispered I love San Francisco.
Oh, I appreciate
it. Been there many times.
And I do too. This is I'm a fourth generation San Franciscan. Yes,
You're a real local.
Yes, very local. I want to say it was my grandmother's father or my grandmother's mother. I'd have to check with the family records. But yes, so that's how long.
Did they have to cross the entire country to get there, or did they come by boat?
It's a good question. I don't actually know. I don't want to say it's lost to history, but I'd have to dig on how my family actually got here.
Right. It's an interesting thought, though. Because woo.
But along my grandfather's track. Now he met my grandmother, who was already from out here, but my grandfather, more interestingly, he was Canadian. So we're Jewish. And he fled Canada due to anti-Semitism. Now, fast forward to today.
All the nice Canadians up there?
Yeah.
I'm so surprised to hear this.
And now fast forward to today, and my parents went not all of a few weeks ago to Canada because they're afraid of anti-Semitism that's been rising up here.
Oh, Scott, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's kind of the crazy part. Now, not a knock against San Francisco. I would say this is more about what we've actually been experiencing as a whole, as a country right now.
I see.
Frightening. It's more of a worst case scenario thing.
I understand.
They're not moving tomorrow. Now, not to get too far away. This conversation is absolutely about cannabis and not about the history,
politics,
the politics and the histories of San Francisco and my family.
Right.
But
we could talk about that forever.
Yes, and we could absolutely go down that rabbit hole. However, regardless, I'm very much a child of the Bay Area. And I have seen the cannabis culture evolve from the Prop 215 days. I got a medical card myself when I was 18. And I would describe that as a rite of passage for many young cannabis users here in the Bay Area.
Prop 15 audience was the name of the legislation that passed in California that started the whole thing.
Yes, it was Prop 215.
Yeah, 215. Sorry.
No worries. And there's all the different states, as we already know, have their own propositions that allowed for medical or recreational cannabis to pass. So I actually always forget the one that allowed for cannabis to become legal out here. So I will not be saying it because I know I don't know it. That being said, so I saw how the culture changed. And the one thing I think that you and me talked during our last conversation was I actually think that the Prop 215 days were more compassionate and effective for patients than the modern recreational system we have today.
Right. It was before Prop 215 was before a bunch of other creative legislators could get their hands on it.
Yeah.
And before all of the alternative ideas to thwart it came up and changed it. And how, I agree with you. The idea was born out of medicating patients and helping patients find relief, not out of a recreational philosophy of getting high.
Yes. Kind of funny. I remember back in the day, there was kind of a culture of there's two groups of people who got medical cards, the people who needed it, and then the people who didn't need it, which I would say I was one of the people who followed into that category. People who liked cannabis and were fans of cannabis and believed in cannabis, but were not necessarily using it medically. And if you were one of those people, there was kind of like an unwritten rule of, well, when a senior or someone who's clearly sick comes into the dispensary, you kind of get out of the way and let them go first.
That's sweet.
A
caring.
Yeah. And it was enforced by
the elders with issues.
Yeah, well, it was enforced in two ways. One, it was enforced because generally speaking, if you were there and you saw a patient, someone who clearly needed help, you would just kind of get out of the way. And two, the budtender would usually address that person first. Yep. So it was kind of normal that's how the culture was. Now, and I'll never forget this, when I first started working at that dispensary I told you about, they had a patient's line and a recreational user's line. There was initially two distinct lines. And I remember one day we just got rid of the patient's line, and it kind of it bugged me. It bugged me. And that I would say is probably what kickstarted my real passion for cannabis medicine, because I wanted to see those patients helped. And I felt like there wasn't really a lot of help for them. And the help that existed is disappearing. The infrastructure was disappearing.
Feels to me like you have more compassion for people than the dispensary did.
Yes. And, it's interesting. I'd almost rephrase what you said and call it the business.
Yeah.
Right. The dispensaries, they were initially intended to help people. That was their original purpose.
Bring the plant to the people.
Yes. And that history goes all the way back to, I want to say it was the 90s with the San Francisco Buyers Club.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Was that the 90s? Was the Buyers Club in the 90s?
I want to say it was the 90s or the 80s.
Okay, so let me stop you here and give audience a little history. The motivation for bringing in cannabis to the public feels like it began with the AIDS thing going on in the 70s, the medical marijuana migration of mothers to Colorado in the 80s when they found out the Stanley Brothers hemp could save their babies from 300 seizures a day. And then after that, came the discovery. I think you're saying the Buyers Club. I thought in the 90s. Is that what you said? Also
Yes.
in the 90s was the fabulous discovery of our endocannabinoid system of receptors, which is the second part of the reason why the cannabis compounds work in us. We've got this master regulatory system of receptors that binds perfectly with all these hundreds of cannabinoids. Sorry, that's the science geek in me that's coming out.
Hi, Honey Smith Walls here. I'm host of the Cannabis Truth Podcast, weekly for the past 6 years. But today I'm inviting you to a Facebook group called the Holistic Relief Summit, in hopes that you too will come for the peace and stay for the epiphanies. It's a beautiful space for women to find all kinds of relief from all kinds of suffering. Come join us for free.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Philip Blair, and I want to introduce you to Honey Smith Walls. And she recently had an experience with beta caryophyllene.
For years, I've been dealing with lots of arthritis pain and pain from neuropathy that has not been resolved through other prescriptive methods. As an advocate educator in the cannabis industry, I learn lots of interesting information about the compounds within the plants, and one of those turned out to be beta caryophyllene.
What was your first dose like?
I was gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. It has given me my future back.
I want to get it out to everybody too. I want to get it out to the whole world, as a matter of fact. It has so many mitigating factors for all the stresses of life and pain and diseases. It is unbelievable, the spectrum of care that it can provide.
That's the science geek in me that's coming out. Go ahead, Doug.
No, and you gave me the opportunity to actually do a quick little Google. It looks like that the Buyers Club ran in 3 locations from 91 to 98.
Oh, thank you for that. I've got another juicy little factoid I just learned from some old fart this morning online.
Dude.
He told me that the very first computer monetary exchange was for pot. Couple of guys in Stanford.
Really?
Yes, they figured out how to do an exchange online, and it was for pot. The very first one. This is like this 82-year-old guy I was talking to who was a business guy back then and still is. He's still in business. So who knew?
No, I had no idea about that, actually.
I just love that.
And that checks out. Definitely. God, I remember back in the mid 2010s, people would go on Craigslist and buy cannabis. Wasn't a safe activity, but I know people did it.
See? Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Yeah, you can buy all kinds of things online, can't you?
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you can buy proof that it doesn't have contamination in it of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, heavy metals, and molds and mildews and bat shit. So just saying, folks, be careful what you're buying when you're buying your weed.
Yes, and actually that kind of brings us to, I think, what we were talking about last time when we spoke, which is it's not even safe when you go in the dispensaries these days.
It's hard to determine, how safe your cannabis is, unless you have a friend to help you with real understanding of the plant and the global aspect of what's happening in the cannabis industry. I know, but the majority of the public doesn't know. Doctors don't know. Our cannabis industry doctors know, and scientists, but they're in the science industry. They're not out marketing to people and the general public. It really takes a helping hand to understand what's happening with this plant, how it affects you, and how you have to guard your safety around it, guard your health around using plant medicines. That's just normal.
So if you ever feel like you have the itch, I don't want to say, oh, check out this podcast. I'm looking to another one. I got another one you should check out. It's a comedian I generally watch. His name's Adam Conover. And he recently interviewed this one woman who did a series of tests and was checking out all the different cannabis products on the shelves and noticed a severe contamination problem that is just running rampant in the California cannabis industry. Yeah, it's been a problem.
What is the problem? What's going through the farms?
So there's a few issues.
Is it at the farm level or is it in the manufacturing processing level?
I would say columns A and B.
Oh.
Like, so for example, they would find one example that just sticks in my mind is DDT, right? They were fine. And now it's not, I don't want to put the blame on anyone because it's not even the growers that are.
Well, it doesn't get there by itself. DDT
You know how,
ain't a natural compound.
okay, so fascinatingly, do you want to know how it got there?
Yes.
So a lot of these farms would be out in Fresno, for example, and the dust would get blown up and get blown onto these farms. And the farmers would go, I didn't put that there. And like, you know, a good amount of these people, I mean, I've been in the industry.
So they're growing near the dumps, basically.
They're growing where farmland
yes.
farmland has always been, right? And as we have progressed for the last 150 years and we've used all these different pesticides, it gets into the soil. Wind comes up, picks up the soil, blows it onto the plants.
Imagine pollinators spread it too.
So, you know, it's a complex issue, and I don't want to sit here and be like, bad cannabis industry, this is your fault. The real issue is that we don't know how to foolproof it, right?
Mitigate the issues yet.
Yes.
Right.
You know, so it's not, but you know, that being said, that's no excuse for those products to not be pulled out by the regulatory agencies. Right?
Well, right. But so few of them, the largesse of the institution has a lot of fear and respect behind it, but they really don't have the manpower to go checking, you know, all of the compounds that are coming out of these farms and dispensaries. Yes. So a lot of content is getting, you know, shoved through the system that hasn't been properly lab tested. That's what you're saying, I think.
Yes. Well, and the other issue with the lab testing, and again, I'm very pro regulations. I also want to be very
Me too.
Here, I want clean pot coming through dispensaries.
I want clean medicine.
I want to say the state of California spent some odd billions of dollars on advertising once cannabis became legal to say, go to a legal shop to get your pot.
Okay.
Right? Trying to kill the black market. I get it. We voted to legalize it.
Okay.
The state of California has a responsibility to its citizens if it's going to set up a legal system like this.
To provide
clean cannabis.
Yes.
That is the thing that we all agree on.
But when you grow it indoors, it has such a huge footprint.
Yes. And you know, that's just talking about the people who are doing this unintentionally.
Yeah.
There are also players who would, you know, who don't play by the rules and
don't care.
Yeah.
Take the shortcut.
And there's
pesticides.
Yes. I want to say there's only about 50 or 60 chemicals that are listed that are illegal to use for pesticides on cannabis. So then, you know, they use other ones.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how the issue continues.
Right. They just switch them out.
Yeah. So you have both people who are unintentionally contaminating cannabis, and you have contaminated cannabis, and then you have people who are just trying to get around the rules. And I would say that the local, at least California, I don't want to speak on behalf of the other States because I haven't really done a lot of research into this. This is just kind of something that's been coming to my attention lately. Um, is ill prepared to handle the situation. I don't feel like the DCC.
Right. The politicians have not yet learned enough about the plant itself to be able to make judicious, informed regulation around it yet. So education really for the politicians is huge, although they've already usurped the authority of the doctor's little black bag by the very nature of their, decrees. No, you can't have this. No, rip CBD out of hemp. No, we don't want anything. Yes, bring it all. We don't care. All of that, the undulating legal regulations across the United States for our plant is just wacka, 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 wacka.
Well, and I think as we discussed last time, that issue goes far beyond just cannabis, right? Yeah. Yeah. And right now that extends to women's rights in general, the ability to access abortion care, the ability to access just women's health care in general.
Seems like were you raised by women?
I was raised by a mom and two sisters.
Guys don't talk about that stuff unless they were, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a guy. If I had a daughter, God forbid she doesn't have the same rights I do as a man.
Precisely. Thank you out loud. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because the mindset still against women is very, very, very deep-seated. We still don't make as much as men.
Well, one last thing. Don't forget, what is cannabis? She's a woman.
It's female. I was just telling my science tribe on LinkedIn this morning when Dr. Cody Peterson put something on there showing a picture of ancient text in Chinese referring to, and it was like 2,000 years old, referring to cannabis. In Chinese, in Mandarin, the word for cannabis is something that we're all very, very, very used to here in the United States and in English. It's called ma.
Oh.
Isn't that lovely? Hey, ma. Hey, ma. It's what my kid has called me all his life. Ma. And when you see the depiction of the Chinese word for cannabis, it looks like a little rafter and two stalks of cannabis drying. You can't miss it. And so I took a Photoshop, a screenshot of his picture, and I circled all the places on the manuscript that I could see where the word ma was, and sent it back to him. You'll find it on LinkedIn. But it's a beautiful word, and it just shows that cannabis has been around forever. It was the emperor of the day who decided that there was so much information about medicine and plants that healed that he realized it had never been written of. And so he started the first pharmacopoeia of the entire world. And that was his mission in life, was to write down every medicinal thing that they knew about every plant. And Ma is in that pharmacopoeia extensively. So I love all that ancient history.
So one thing we discussed last time was, so I'm not a pharmacist. Let me be very clear about where my limitations are and where they aren't. So I do have a master's of science in cannabis science and therapeutics, and I went through the same master's program as Cody Peterson and
just love that.
And Dr. Leah Johnson. Two people you would have been on this podcast before.
That's right, several times. And they're wonderful. Let me say it again, Dr. Leah Johnson. She is a pharmacist doctor out in California, and so is Dr. Cody, C-O-D-I, Peterson, who is a pediatric pharmacist in a major hospital out in California, as well as they're both cannabinoidologists. So I'm so thrilled that you know them and that we run in the same circles. It's so cool.
I know it's here's the thing. Remember, it's a cannabis community, right? Yeah. And it's very funny because I forget how small our little community is. One more person I would like to throw out there is Dr. Chandra Browning. She is a pharmacist from Atlanta, Georgia, and she also went through the program with me.
I didn't know her. I'm so glad that you told me.
Well, I totally welcome you. I totally suggest you connect with her as well. That all being said, between the three of them, who I became quite good friends with during my time there, I learned more about medicine than I think I really expected. And it was awesome. But the one thing I took away from it, right? Well, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, but the one thing I did take away is that plants have therapeutic properties that are often extracted and then put into pills.
Yes.
Yes. And this is nothing I feel like I'm not saying anything too extravagant here.
Right.
It's something we've all kind of known for a very long time. We also do research. We find new therapeutic products and
Hello, aspirins. Aspirin comes from the willow bark tree.
But the one thing that seems to be holding medicine back, when I talk to a lot of people, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, so I'm not quoting anyone here.
Yeah.
Seems to be that we are set up really well to study individual chemicals. And I don't want to say the word chemical because it has a dirty connotation. But
compound.
But it is. It's a chemical compound, right?
Right.
THC is a chemical compound.
Right.
Right. And we do a great job at studying just THC. We do a great job at studying just CBD. But we don't do a great job of studying
the full spectrum. Right.
The full plant, right? If I'm smoking a joint, you know what? Let's pretend it's therapeutic. So if I'm taking a tincture, right?
Yep.
And that tincture it's cannabis plant soaked in MCT coconut oil, right? So
yes.
I'm not getting THC. I'm not just getting CBD. I'm also getting terpenes, all the other cannabinoids present, and they interact with each other within your body. And we don't do a great job of being able to decipher what all of these compounds are doing together.
Right. Going to take, I don't know if technology might be able to help us speed this process up, but it feels like it's going to take 100 years for us to understand the value of all of those hundreds of different cannabinoid compounds in our body, messing with all the amazing, miraculous juju that goes on in our body.
And then trying to figure out how they interact with one another.
Exactly. But know that there's a synergistic magic between the compounds in cannabis and also when they come into our body and start working. It's synergistic. It's not just that, one compound out of cannabis is going to one thing. No, they're all swirling and playing and meshing and melting together and raising our receptors to and fro. So isn't that right?
Yes.
With the credentials.
Well, so what I was actually going to say is one person who I think has made strides in this territory would be Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Oh, I love Gene. Oh, he's amazing. I see him at Cannabis Public School every Sunday.
And he has done this really fascinating research. If you ever feel like bringing him back on the podcast, maybe he's already talked about it, is that he basically took a bunch of cannabis plants from the dispensaries and looked at the compounds that are in there and found, we kind of talk about cannabis like there's 1,000 different strains and there's 1,000 different effects.
Yeah.
According to his research, there's actually more like 7.
7?
There's more like 7. Not to say 7 strains, but 7, I'm going to say, patterns of cannabinoids and terpenes that commonly occur.
All right.
Right? So we go from 1,000 to 7, right? And now this seems a lot more decipherable.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
And I would say that that's going to be kind of the future of cannabis research. It's understanding what is in the plant, how does it interact with the body, and what's it doing.
This is where I think AI is going to be so helpful for this process. And of course, it's got to be, seriously monitored and reviewed, but and thought out by human brains. But AI, I think, is going to help this process because it is so complicated.
I have such mixed feelings about the AI
Do
stuff.
you?
I'm 30 and I'm 33, right? I turned 33 in 4 days. So I have mixed feelings that AI is on one hand very helpful.
Yes.
On another hand, one thing that I learned through the master's program is there's a reason why we say someone is practicing medicine.
Yes.
They are practicing.
We don't say he is God, Dr. God of medicine, like we think in our heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people really wish, and sometimes medicine does feel like that. Oh, yeah. I've got a sore throat.
Yeah.
And it's caused by, streptococcus.
Right.
And I have a sore throat, and now I'm going to take this antibiotic that's going to kill the streptococcus, and then I'm going to be better. And so sometimes it really feels like the doctors just have a key that they turn, and you're better, right?
Yeah.
But medicine doesn't, once you get really in depth with it, and that's kind of what you're doing when you work in cannabis medicine. You're not working with streptococcus and bacteria. You're working with cancer in cannabis, AIDS in cannabis, neuropathy in cannabis.
Right.
And now we're in that area of practice.
Yes. And discovery in practice.
Exactly. And as we keep going down the AI rabbit hole, what makes me very nervous is that people are going to forget about the practice and just be like, okay, I'm going to go plug in my question to this AI thing, and it's going to tell me what I should do.
Well, we saw that happening too with Dr. Google, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. And people still do Dr. Google.
People still do Dr. Google.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some AI cannabis things out there that are becoming more prevalent.
Right.
And for me, I kind of look at it with, sure, optimism on some level. As long as it helps, people, I'm happy. But at the same time, I look at it very skeptically.
Yes.
Because what's the recourse if what AI machine suggests for cancer is the wrong thing?
Right.
Or, maybe it might just need to take a small tweak and they just need to talk to their doctor or their pharmacist about it, right? Maybe move from a higher THC to a higher CBD strain, right?
Yes.
The cannabis AI stuff makes me very nervous.
Well, I would expect those programs to be mastered by, technological wizards who are already in the medical field and understand the line of questioning and onboarding, information and data that needs to happen when we're talking about discovery to find what works for patients through cannabis. But all that's going to take a long, long time.
So on that note, not to plug my own hopes and dreams, because my hopes and dreams are not exactly a business yet, but what I hope to do is my goal is I want to create certifications for budtenders, right? I want budtenders trained.
I do too, so desperately. I can't ask a budtender in any store more than 2 questions or they switch out on me and I have to start all over again because they know the answer and they're intimidated by the question and, Oh, I'm so glad. Tell me more.
So I was a bud tender, and I would get people walking in asking me questions about cancer and neuropathy, and I did not have a master's degree. I was really just a dude who was 27, who was really passionate about cannabis and wanted to help people. Like
Yeah.
that was it. Um, but then I would have someone walk in, they're like, I have cancer, and everyone else kind of did the, oh, I don't want to deal. And I understand it. Like that's a very deep question.
It's
And
and
people
there's a lot of fear around it.
and people will get in depth with you about the medical symptoms they are experiencing.
Yes,
Like
they
you are
will.
a doctor, even though you are not, and you have to remind them you are not.
Yeah.
Um,
People are real, people are fearful and trying to find an answer or a solution, and they just spill their poor little guts to everybody.
yes, I mean, they're making themselves vulnerable in order for you to help them.
Yeah. Right.
Knowing all of that, the one thing I did that no one else would do is I would go Google. I've had someone had cancer and cannabis. What do I do? And I would inevitably find myself on an NIH article or some research article that made
Right.
suggestions about what to do, and I would just do my best to follow the recommendations as per the research paper.
Right. NIH audience is the National Institute of Health. It's a government agency. Go ahead.
And I had enough success that I had people come back. There were definitely people who did not, because again, not a doctor and I'm not practiced.
Right.
But it made me want to help people further. And one thing that really stuck out to me was I had this one woman. I think I told you about her last time. She came in, and we were talking about PTSD and cannabis.
Yep.
And as we were mid conversation, a gaggle of motorcycle bikes just fly by the store, revving their motors, and this poor woman immediately broke down into tears. Because she was at a mass shooting.
Oh, poor thing. She was triggered by those motorcycles.
Yes. So immediately we have a lounge,
Yeah.
and at the time I was basically hosting the lounge,
Yeah.
and I'd have access to all these different cannabis products. And at the time I had some CBD flower that no one wanted to smoke if I paid them. But at the same time, I have used CBD flower for myself, and it really reduces my own anxiety.
Uh-huh.
So I said, hey, sit down, try this. I hope it helps. I'm going to come check on you in 5 minutes. Let me know if you need anything.
Yep.
I go out to the floor, help another customer, come back. And she immediately was like, I'm not sure what you gave me, but I immediately feel better. Thank you so much. And
hemp is so wonderful for anxiety.
And it was one of those things that one clicked, like it was like it clicked. Cannabis is medicine, not something it's not like I didn't know it, but that was the first time I could really help someone with it. That was really like, oh wow,
Felt like it was a tool in your toolkit, didn't it?
Yes.
And you were the fixer. Yeah, I know. I get that feeling. I get it. It's amazing when somebody you can, share this information with really finds relief like that. And she did.
Yes.
She's going to be talking about that for a long, long time.
And it's kind of funny. I wanted more education on the topic. And I mean, I must have been kind of getting toward the end of my time there, because I was there for about, I want to say 1.5 years. And it was at the time I wanted more education. It must have been only a few months later when I read in Forbes about this master's program that I ended up going to. I went through the master's program, graduated, and couldn't find any kind of work to do with cannabis medicine. So it's kind of been on me to make it happen, which is kind of why I want to create these certifications. I want to create a system where these bud tenders can be like, hey, I know I'm out of my league, but here's a doctor we can get you to. Here's a pharmacy business we can get you to that can answer your questions.
Yes.
I can get you the product that they recommend.
We just can't, we just have to try to get the owners of the dispensaries to get their bud tenders to have a standard referral card.
Yep.
Some kind, a standard referral company that they trust, that they're not going to get into any legal trouble with by saying, I think you should go see this doctor for more information about your particular issues and which cannabinoids could help you. But I'm afraid they're afraid of the legality of that.
Yes. And remember, this is all a business, unfortunately.
It's all a business.
Now, back to the Prop 215 days.
Yeah.
Was it a business? Yes. But there was a real emphasis on the responsibility and compassion back then.
Right.
Right.
Because it all came up out of compassion.
It did. And that's what is missing between yesteryear and today. Right.
Politicians sucked it all out again, didn't they?
They did. And I have such issue with the way it was legalized here in California.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're just talking about the medicine. I want not to shift gears too hard.
Yeah.
One thing that's just wild to me.
Right.
There are people in Humboldt, Trinity County, and the Emerald Triangle.
Right.
That had farms for like 80 to 100 years.
Yes.
Growing cannabis.
Right.
This is family history. These are family farms. These are people who have had this land forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? California legalized cannabis, made it impossible for them to get a license. Now their farm goes under. And that's not even an uncommon story.
No, it's not.
I almost get mad talking about this.
I'm
not even a farmer. I can't even imagine what it would be. It feel like someone's erasing my family's history.
Yeah. Yeah. All for political shenanigans.
Yes. So I just have such issue. And then people started these businesses, right? Hoping to make some money. And there's nothing wrong with that. We agree that we live in a capitalist society. The agreement is I'm going to start a business, right? And I'm going to try to run this business so that I can make money. There's literally no shame in that. But California has taxed so heavily cannabis products that people can't, that I want to say over half of licenses that were given out in California are now considered inactive because the business has gone under.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm just ashamed of it.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of it. And it seems to me like, I don't hear about anybody making money in cannabis except the big corporate guys who are just in it for the money.
Yeah. The only ones that come to mind are Truly, Verano,
right.
and I want to say the Cannabis Company.
Right. So, and then the big giant MedMen went down. One of the biggest companies, biggest corporate companies in cannabis in America, and it went down last year.
Yeah, it did.
And it was huge, spread across the United States, but it couldn't survive the political shenanigans. So that is what we're up against. And, there is an opportunity because of this is the way that it is, in that we have to figure out entrepreneurial ways of educating our public. And so, okay, they're forcing me to be an entrepreneur because I can't trust corporate. I can't trust the men who run, all the political legislation across the United States. And so they're forcing me to teach you all what you need to know about cannabis so that you can make informed decisions about it and cut out corporate and legislators. So
now, the one thing I will say that is the beautiful silver lining in all of this.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I find that bud tenders as a whole population, this is why I really believe in the budtender population, is actually quite educated on the topic of cannabis, which I find really interesting because here in California, they are underpaid severely. I want to say
Across the US, underpaid.
and they will like I want to say you'll make more money here in California working at In-N-Out Burger or McDonald's.
Yeah.
So it's people who are really genuinely passionate about it. Not to say that they're educated or not or particularly knowledgeable, but at least they're passionate and they want to be there, and that says volumes.
That says volumes. The fact that they're being contained in a posture of ignorance is incredibly disturbing to me. These corporations could easily teach their budtenders some fundamentals about cannabis so that they're not using inappropriate, misleading language like indica and sativa to figure out what you're going to buy. So, I can teach somebody some very few list of fundamentals, and they could go out and figure out more than what they're doing without any help. And it's not that hard. I keep telling people, if you put butter and syrup on pancakes, you can do cannabis alchemy. It's just not that hard. It's different. It's different than anything we've ever been culturalized to learn. But we can do this. We're smart and we have technology and each other.
And each other. And that's one more thing. Each other, the community.
Right.
The cannabis community is one of the strongest communities you will ever meet.
It is.
And if you don't believe either of us, I highly recommend going and checking out some events. Here in California, I highly recommend the Emerald Cup.
Yep.
It's funny because if you talk to people who have gone back in the day, they'll be like, "Oh, it's not what it once was." But in all reality, it's actually quite still community based. And while maybe sure some sponsorships are paid for,
so what?
Yeah. So what? I mean, at the end of the day,
you want to have a porta potty at that event? Get a sponsor.
Yeah.
You want to have food at that event? Get a sponsor.
And it's one more funny thing. The Emerald Cup is a thing where they judge like the best pot in California.
Yeah, based on its name.
I'm going to say something funny. I have never had the best pot ever.
Yeah, me either.
There's different strains that are very particularly memorable to me.
Yeah.
Right.
There are different events that are particularly memorable, but I had no idea what I was using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if someone handed me the best marijuana grown in California, I'd be like, sure, this is great pot.
Yeah.
I want to go smoke some J1. I'm a big fan of like Jacks and Durbans. Like those are my favorite type. I'm a big sativa head.
Okay.
So sure, I've had some Jack that's better than other Jack and some Durban that's better than other Durban. But if you're asking me to split hairs between the best 5 rows of Jack Herrera I've ever had, I'm not going to be able to tell you the difference.
Right. Hey, dude, tell us how we can get in touch with you to talk to you some more about what you're going to be doing and helping bud tenders, and pass your name and thoughts along to those angels out there who want your help as well.
Please check out my YouTube page, Project Stash Masters. We only have one project up there, but we do hope to actually start expanding that YouTube page. So please keep your eye on it.
Awesome.
Also, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at the original Stash Master.
Okay.
And then I would say if you ever just want to pop me an email, scott.canna.solutions@gmail.com.
That's awesome. Thank you. Can we find you on LinkedIn as well? Did you and I? Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah, because we run in the same medical professional circles on LinkedIn, which is where Scott and I get lots and tons of support through the other medical professionals that we hang out with, and the new science and discovery that they talk to us about all the time. So we run in those circles. Do you know about Dustin Sulak's Dr.
Of course.
Dulac conferences every month. Yeah, I'm still going to those after it started in 2019. And he's been doing those monthlies to about 500 of, our favorite medical specialists every month. And it's free, and it's such juicy information. But thank you, Scott. Thank you so much for coming and just talking about the industry. It's so nice to be able to talk shop with you.
Of course. It's been an absolute pleasure coming back on, honey. Thank you for having me back. And I hope we get to connect again soon.
Oh, we surely will. And I'll see you in the social medias and the AI too.
I'll be seeing you in the community.
Thank you, honey. See you later. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to another Cannabis Truth Podcast with 21st century cannabis shaman Honey Smith Walls. Using cannabis mindfully as medication is a different concept in Western healthcare philosophy, specifically over the past century. There's a lot to learn and reconsider. The scientific truth of cannabis is finally getting out and is wide open for all to see at respected medical sites like the National Library of Medicine at pubmed.gov and the Journal of American Medical Association at JAMAnetwork.com. We here at the Cannabis Truth Podcast are right there in the thick of it, alongside the titans of medicine, as a fly on the wall. We are not doctors, nor did we go to medical school, but we have taken dozens of private cannabis courses and still engage in continuing education offered by expert cannabis scientists. Over the past few years, we slowly began to see and understand the bigger picture. Now we hear from people all day long about cannabis. It is so important to use verifiably safe products. The process of getting a diagnosis from your family doctor and taking your records to a cannabis specialist can lead you to the correct cannabinoid therapy for your specific issues. Otherwise, you're simply your own guinea pig looking for answers without the foundational knowledge or ability to determine your best strategy. To find a qualified cannabis expert in your area, visit cannabisclinicians.org. This is a national society of cannabis experts. Look for the link in the show notes. Unless otherwise proven by a reputable third-party lab test, please regard all street weed as contaminated. It may do grave harm to a patient with a delicate immune system who already has inflammatory issues like arthritis, IBS, fibromyalgia, or worse. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you find value and understanding through the conversations you've heard on this podcast.